You know, when you guys are having a hard time, how many of you reach out to a friend? Every single one of the women except for one raised their hand. I asked the men, only one raised his hand. That's the social norm. That's the fundamental difference. Yeah. Connection is one of the things I talk about when I speak.
Welcome, friends. I'm Adrian Sinclair, and this is the Adrian Sinclair Show, where I speak with interesting people about interesting topics that bring in value to you, the listener or the viewer. And today my guest is Kristin Petrucci, transformational speaker, and a whole slew of a lot of other things. And instead of like just reciting them, I'm just going to pass that baton to you to tell us a little bit more about you because, well, actually, I am going to say a couple of things. Transformational speaker, corporate mental wellness expert, and mindset architect. Build a victory mindset. One of the topics of your website is, the space, the domain in which you work in terms of transformation. So welcome to the show, Kristin. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself. If there would be 3 words that you would describe yourself, what would they be?
Okay, well, one would be, that's a good question. I actually posted that on LinkedIn and asked people, and I posted my 3 words, and now I'm drawing a blank. But one of those for sure is loving. The other is exciting, and then I get peaceful a lot. So peaceful.
Well, as a mother of 5, you definitely need to have the loving part, and then it's good to have that peaceful element as well.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about your journey into what you're doing right now. You're a transformational speaker. Mm-hmm. How did you start on that journey?
That's a good question. A lot of people, I've found that some people either have a phobia of speaking or they absolutely love it. You know, there's some people who are like, all right, I'll do it, but really, it's not my thing. I absolutely love to be in front of an audience or to even be in front of a small group and tell my story. And even before I had my story, I loved to just talk and be able to speak to people and uplift them.
So you're just blessed with that propensity to just be the social butterfly in the sense of just interacting with people.
Yes, it's connecting with people is one of my gifts, and I can connect in a large scale or in a small scale. And so one of my favorite memories is when I was in 4th grade and I was in a spelling bee, and I was going against 6th and 5th graders, and I ended up getting 2nd place. But during this time when I was going and spelling words, there were, I was a really short kid. So I was not only the youngest, but also a really short little girl. So people were starting to cheer for me over and over. And then I started getting this energy from the crowd and so excited to get the right word, And when I didn't get the right word and ended up taking 2nd place, the whole crowd still cheered for me. Like they were so excited. This little 4th grader, got 2nd place. That is one of those moments in my life that reminded me that being in front of a crowd, being in front of an audience is one of my favorite things to do, to entertain. But, when I became an adult, it wasn't just about dancing in front of a crowd or competing in sports. It was about helping people.
Right.
And I had a grand mal seizure in 2016, and I suffered brain trauma and damage from it. And when that occurred, I was really lost and had suicidal ideations, a lot of rage, a lot of hardship. My husband lost his wife for quite a while. My kids lost their mom, and I lost me. And this journey of coming back and using positive psychology practices that I'd already learned in my post-grad work helped me understand that I could bring my love and passion for being in front of people and couple it and marry it to the work that I did with myself and positive psychology strategies and be able to help people at the same time. And that's when KP Speaks was born. That was in June of 2019.
Finding empowerment from tragedies is something that I've seen happen to some people, that instead of being crushed by it, and it bolsters them and gives them that purpose and energy. And that's what it sounds like to me happened to you, that you took that as a thing that propelled you to do what you're doing right now. How is it in terms of building your own business based on that? I mean, I think it's great to have that personal story that you have, that this is what happened to me, because that's what people relate to. Mm-hmm. Do you find that kind of storytelling, is that is that building bridge when you're speaking at speaking engagements that makes the story that your information flow better to those who are receiving.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everyone has had something happen in their life where suddenly something tragic or something that they didn't expect happened, whether it's a job loss or divorce or trauma or something. And they can relate with that. They can relate with, my life just changed suddenly with something I didn't expect. And what the heck do I do with that?
Right.
And so when I tell my story, it brings us to this point where we're connecting, and they can feel it and I can feel it. And then that's where the transformation starts happening, because we're connected, we're all in there listening, and then we're like, I would like to know how she got out of this. And I have had moments like that. What can I do? And if they haven't had moments like that, they know someone who has.
Right.
So when I go into colleges, so I'll go to here in Utah, UVU, and teach sometimes of the health class. And some of them are just like, you know what, I've got a great life, or nothing's happened to me. More students now, though, are struggling a lot with mental wellness issues. And so they can relate to it. But I tell them, like, look, you're not married yet, most of you. You haven't gotten your big job yet. You're still studying. The world is your palette.
Right.
And when I talk to them, I say, there will be a time where you'll meet someone who will need what I'm going to teach you right now. Or you might need these. This is like an inoculation. This is your preventative care.
Yeah. That is such a good point, because we might think that, well, I'm okay. Even though you may not be okay, sometimes you need someone to tell you, like, hey, what is that saying, that if someone tells you, like, you look sick, but a couple people will tell you that it looks like you probably should go and see a doctor?
I guess so, yeah. I never heard it, but now I'm going to pay attention.
But what are some of the biggest surprises that you've had in terms of working with people on their transformations that you've seen? I guess like biggest surprises that even to you with your history and your journey, that you were like, wow, I didn't think that it was going to turn out this way, and it had.
Well, what's been interesting is I've had multiple podcast interviews, and when I've been interviewed, and it's mainly been the men that have interviewed me, at the end, either they've been in tears, or they've just been like, thank you. Yeah, watch out.
Are we going there?
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that we were able to go to that authentic, vulnerable place, because a lot of my focus has been about mental wellness and hygiene for men, because I feel like men tend to go bulldozing through life until they hit the wall, and then they just either go into self-destructive behaviors, turn to suicide, or just they literally are so hard on themselves that they don't know where to go when they hit that wall.
Let's speak about that. That is a very interesting topic, because I think we as men, we have this be macho, have your ducks in a row, suppress your feelings. What do it's we don't talk things out. We will suppress them. We will put them in. What started you on that journey to look into men's mental health?
Well, I have 6 brothers. But it was definitely the effects of my illness that it had on my husband. He literally had to go back to work within, 3 to 5 days after I had my seizure. And he left me with people had to be with me at all times, because I couldn't take care of the kids anymore for a while. But he had to go to work, perform, teach students. He was a professor at the time. But nobody even knew what was going on with. And he had literally watched me on the bed convulsing for up to about 5 minutes, had to call the ER. He's from Italy, has no family here. He saw me stop breathing, so he thought I passed away. And we had a 7-month-old in the bed at the time with us when I had the seizure, and a 2.5-year-old.
My goodness.
And the 2.5-year-old was also sleeping in the bedroom. So he sees me, the 7-month-old, his wife convulsing, and then, out of nowhere, in the middle of the night, and then suddenly stops breathing. Terrifying and traumatic. And then we get to the hospital. I wake up. He says, Cuciola, which is his nickname for me, I'm here. And he tells me Lorenzo and Joshua are okay, which are our 2 youngest. I couldn't remember them. I can only remember my 2 oldest kids. So he had loss as well. It wasn't just me that had that loss. And so watching him and the effects it had on his mental health, and the stress he had because he's a sole provider.
Right.
But then now he's also the sole caretaker. It was very traumatic. And I'm finding that a lot of men and women, I mean, it's both genders, all genders, like when you have a partner that goes through a traumatic event, you're affected very much as well. And we all go through this process of trying to navigate that loss. Some of us deal with it really well because we've been taught how to do that.
Right.
Some of us haven't. And seeking out how to take care of our mental wellness, it can come serendipitously or through the universe just putting it on our lap, or it can come through really hard stuff. Some self-destructive behaviors and hitting rock bottom. But my motto is like, why hit rock bottom? You know, why do we have to get to the point where we hit rock bottom before we go get help? Why not inoculate ourselves and give ourselves that boost, that immunization of mental hygiene, taking care of our minds so that when those ginormous, huge traumatic events happen, we don't even feel like it's that traumatic. We're able to really get through it and still be able to function and continue to move forward. And like your wife, you know, you mentioned to me she's in the mental wellness work. She does that for people. She teaches them these skills. It's so essential. But wouldn't it be amazing if people already have these skills that I also share and that your wife shares before they get to that point where they're suicidal or where they, you know, decide to leave their families and leave their jobs and or die.
It is, you know, it's always astonishing to me that most of us we know that our bodies, how to take care of our bodies, you know, eat wholesome foods, be active, work out, do something, and yet we neglect our brains, our mental health, wellness. And I guess now during the corona, that's been a little bit more highlighted how important, you know, that is to make sure that you take care of yourself mentally as well. The problem I think with men is that there's this stigma around mental health or therapy or counseling or going to see someone and talk to someone. It feels like to men mostly that, oh, it's some kind of a failure on my part, that I didn't have my stuff together. I didn't man up, or it's like, you know, men up or do this, do that to kind of suppress what's going through your life. And it's a sign of weakness for men to it's thought by men mostly, it's a sign of weakness. I have to go and get some help, unless it's so critical that you're ready, your life crumbled, and then it's almost not up to you that you should go and see someone. Mm-hmm. But there's so many things that can be done ahead of that, you know, crisis, right? Mm-hmm. And so that mindset, you know, I think I'm hoping that the pendulum is going to swing the other way, and it's going to be accepted that just like you go to the gym, you should go and talk to someone once in a while, just kind of integrate things, figure things out. What do you think can help, especially with men, to kind of make that shift in the mindset about mental health and mental wellness?
Well, I think one of the shifts that could be really take it to the other side is women, when it's scientifically proven, like there's studies out there that they have shown what men do when they're in crisis and what women do.
Right.
And
we go and hide.
Men turn to self-destructive behaviors and self-isolation. What do you think women do?
They socialize. They talk. They
connect.
Yeah.
They turn to somebody. So same thing when I'm at UVU teaching, I ask the students, women, you know, when you guys are having a hard time, how many of you reach out to a friend? Every single one of the women except for one raised their hand. I asked the men, how many of you? Only one raised his hand.
Yeah.
That's the social norm. That's the fundamental difference. Yeah. Connection is one of the things I talk about when I speak and when I go into organizations and help with trainings. Connection is key. Building those social, emotional connections is absolutely essential. And when you're feeling the stress, when you're feeling like I can't do this anymore, men turn into isolation and self-destruction, and women are like, girl, I can't do this anymore. Help me out. And they just talk it out.
Right.
Or they go to a therapist, or they, so that connection is essential.
Yeah.
It's the essential part.
Why do you think that is? Is this just kind of like from our ancestors and ancestors back in the day. Like, where do we get that as men, that we go into this solitude, go into the cave, as they call it, right, to kind of figure things out, as opposed to being, socializing it and building relationships and kind of integrating that through conversations with others?
I have no idea, but what comes to mind in my own thought process is, when boys and girls are little, they have the exact same emotions. They are treated a little bit differently in some households. And society treats them a little bit differently. Culturally, they're treated a little bit differently. Right. The older the boys get, they're treated differently for having the sad emotions.
Right. Boys
if they're
don't
struggling,
cry.
They don't cry as much. So they can't be able to feel like subconsciously open to struggling. So in my mind, it feels like I'm not enough. I'm not safe to express my emotions. So how can I express that to someone that I'm struggling? And also, Brene Brown, I love Brene Brown. She mentioned like the men, like a man came to her and said, you talk all about vulnerability, but when we're vulnerable, then the women in our lives freak out because we are that security for them. And so it's all about coming to actualization, being able to, the men being able to take care of, knowing that they can take care of themselves, but they can lean on us. And women knowing, I've got this, it's okay. I can be emotionally secure and be there for him when he's struggling and know that he's just like me. Like women, I freak out all the time and I tell my husband, like, this is what I'm struggling with. And he doesn't go, oh my gosh, we're going to die. Like, you're going to, we're not going to be able to continue on. And, instead he's like, okay, you've got this. And of course, sometimes he'll give suggestions and things like that. But as a woman, through my process of, I've been married twice, and I have 6 brothers. And I'll tell you, like, when I see a man starting to struggle, innately, it's like, like we expect them to be strong and stoic.
Yeah.
And yet, one of the things that a woman will also tell you is it's one of the sexiest things you've ever seen when you see a man cry. So we want them to cry, but we want them to be strong and,
So what do we do?
I know.
What do we do?
We put you guys like in these chains.
We're being pulled apart in like, this is not good and this is wrong. So
it's all about bringing it up to discussion and being able to be open about and having the questions, like creating that connection. How are you feeling? And actually being sincere instead of like, hey, how's it going? And you walk off. No, like, hey, how's it going? And you sit there and you wait till that person tells you something.
Tell me about it, right?
Yeah.
I have the theory that I've read somewhere about the divergence in that respect in terms of how men behave and women behave socially is some anthropologist probably wanted to explain it, that men back in the day, hunter-gatherers time, many generations ago, they went hunting, women stayed behind, cared for the young and build that social fabric network and talked about things and that became their strength, versus men, when you're hunting, you're not talking a lot, especially when you're trying to get some kind of an animal, right? Yeah. You're not going to be chit-chatting. It's going to be like, you there, kill, right? Get it, and bring it back to the village. So I feel that that's probably contributed over millennia of development. That kind of social development is not as developed, with men. And but now, we are not hunting, woolly mammoths. We're in ever connected, globally society, and we got to get up to speed. Yeah, we need to get up to speed.
Yeah, and what's interesting is one of the exercises sometimes therapists will use is a lot of our perceived threats. Like back in the day, it was a real tiger, and now they use the example of a stuffed tiger. But our brains perceive it as the real tiger. So that's how anxiety comes up in our bodies, and we're driven with this fight or flight, but really it's a perceived threat instead of a real threat. Right. And so that's also where I teach something called Stop and Wonder, or SAW. To help saw through those negative thoughts. Okay. It's a way of being able to, it's called trait mindfulness. So it's the ability to go into a mindful state at any moment during your day and in any time. So like when we're talking or when I'm in a highly stressful situation, I will actually use trait mindfulness to keep me centered and keep me present instead of like losing my concentration looking at all these cameras. You've got the coolest setup ever. I just have to say that. But instead of like, okay, camera 1, 2, 3 or whatever, I will actually take in like a really deep breath, maybe trace my feet or, pinch my hands a little bit. And I'll take 2 or 3 deep, calm breaths, and I'm back like totally present, really focused, being able to be more creative and really be able to be, be on spot, be me, be authentic. And that's something that I teach in corporations, and something that I teach to, let's say, like HR leaders, or when I teach when I'm doing my transformational speaking. So the stop and wonder.
For me, the biggest thing is implementation, execution of the knowledge that we gather, because we all are book smart, or we have accessibility to all the knowledge that we can ingest, right? Internet, you can look up anything you want, but the key is, how do we implement it? So the things that you just described right now, which is whether you run your hands, or like these other tactile things or mental things that you do. How do you remind yourself of doing that? I mean, I'm sure it's a habit for you right now because you've done it so many times. But at the onset of this, when you were at the beginning of this journey, how did you ingrain that in yourself so that you would remember to do those things when a stressful situation happens?
Well, that's a good point. I did have to ingrain it, and I still have to practice it. Like if I start feeling a little bit nervous, I'm like, duh, like stop and wonder, girl.
Right.
I had to use it extensively for 2 weeks straight. I was using it, I would say, more than 40 times a day.
Wow.
But it's because I was caught in such a negative thought cycle. So that was at the point where I was at the apex of, am I going to get better, or am I stuck in this brain that is always feeling negative and can't get out? And I was introduced to a TED Talk by Guy Winch, spelled W-I-N-C-H. He's a psychologist, and he talks about mental hygiene. And he shared just this little bit about rumination and how to get out of that rumination moment, where rumination is like, I don't know if you know what it is with cows, but it's where they chew their food, swallow, and they burp it back up, and they chew it again, and then they swallow. So they regurgitate. And it's the same thing with the brain. Like we'll go through those thoughts, or, continue to have these negative thought cycles, or we might feel anxiety, or but like I said, it's a perceived threat. There is no real threat at that moment. I might be doing my dishes and suddenly I get hit with a thought that causes me to feel anxiety or feel down. And that was happening to me all the time because of the damage that happened to my brain, and also just the negative thoughts and the suicidal ideations. So I was introduced to that talk, and then I was also introduced to a article in Psychology Today magazine, back to back within 2 days. And then I remember Positive Psych, all my lessons about wonder and awe. And so I literally just like, I'm starting today. And every single time I had a negative thought, I would stop and I would breathe, and I would either look at the sky, or I would think of something that brought me joy. I would call a friend. I would listen to a song. Within 5 seconds, if you can stop that negative thought, you can reprogram your brain. And within 2 weeks, I was functioning. I was happy. I spoke to a group of women within those 2 weeks. Like it was miraculous.
The implementation of it is key. So it sounds like focusing on repetition of that. Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips or tricks in terms of like how else did you help yourself? Did you like put like sticky notes? Like I hear like there's different ways that people remind themselves. They suddenly surround themselves with something that will remind them. Yeah. So just by being somewhere, like whether it's a sticky note or a piece of item, a token, something that kind of jogs your mind to get into that, oh, I know I need to do this now moment. Did you do any of that, or was it just like you were just doing it so often that it was just happening almost constantly for those couple of days?
Well, for those 2 weeks, it just would happen. But then what I love to do is I'll put a reminder in my phone. Like I still have a reminder. It's like, let go, let God. And it'll just pop up. And then it's like like good thoughts bring good things. So like things like that I'll have pop up in my phone to remind me. And then my yoga therapist, Soraya Bastian, she she's here in Utah as well, but she also enhanced my stop and wonder practice when I was in her classes. She mentioned that you could use a reminder that's like if you every time you hear an ambulance siren or every time you hear the doorbell ring, so that becomes your Pavlov's bell.
That's your the little trigger.
The trigger. So at the time I had an infant, and so I used every time she cried. I would do that, and that would help me calm down. That is so smart. Yeah, but now she's older, so I guess I could use every time she screams because she's the toddler. And I haven't had to use that anymore because I'm, but there are times, so I still get hit with anxiety. I still get hit with depression whenever I have seizures during the night. So I can't control that. So I'll wake up sometimes and I'll have 2 to 3 days of anxiety. I'm like, why am I so anxious? There's nothing going on. And I'm like, duh, I probably had a seizure last night. And I'm so tired suddenly, and I can't control that. But what I can control is I know it's going to end within 2 to 3 days. So I just hold on. Like sometimes the podcast interview is something that reminds me of the power of what I teach because it helps me teach and remind myself even of the importance of what I do for myself and for others. And so then I practice, I continue, and I'm like, hold on, girl. You got 2 or 3 days, and you're going to get out of this.
Right. Do you get a sense of maybe not even empowerment, but a sense of when you see what you do has a positive impact on someone? Share a story when you had maybe it is empowering when you do impact someone and then you sort of feed off of that success that someone had.
Yeah, I recently we had some executives over at my home to eat lunch before the red hit Utah again, and one of them I had shared. He works with Tribe House, and I had shared the Stop and Wonder. And he said, that Stop and Wonder, man, it's changed my life. And he said, just yesterday I was struggling. I got outside and I did the Stop and Wonder, and thank you. And just hearing that and knowing that it impacted someone, I can recognize that it's going to help a lot of maybe women, but when I hear a man say it, I don't know, I get kind of giddy because I'm like, yes, a man is practicing this. And then I had a woman who was nursing. It is possible. Yeah, it's possible. And I had a woman nursing one time, and at the time I had a different name when I had spoken to these women that were struggling, a different, business name. Right. And she was like, oh, it says Buona Forchetta. And I was like, what? How do you, and I was like, yeah. She said, you have helped me so much with what you talk about, and it was just random, like a random meeting in a nursing room with babies, and that, it really does. It reminds me that what you do is impactful, but really the most impact I have is just reminding me of how far I've come, and that my main soul's purpose is to help people know they're not alone, that they can do it. Like, you literally can do this, because I've been through hell. And there's times where I'm still in hell, and I get out of it through just doing these simple things.
Remind me about like how you, the steps through the stop and wonder. How do you? So you remind yourself of it. What happens in your mind when you do that?
Well, I could be in a highly anxious state or really down and depressed, or let's say I'm frenzied with something that I'm working on, and I just can't get my mind to be clear. So we can do it right now. Like, sometimes I have people like sit up straight and, just kind of calm down. You could be laying in bed, you could be in your car, but sitting up straight will give you like that, I don't know, the energy flow a little bit better. And then you just close your eyes if you can. You can still keep them open, but you would close your eyes and you just take in a really deep, long breath through your nose and out through your mouth. And while you're doing it 2 more times, you're going to trace your feet or clench your fists, but you're also going to connect to your feelings. And the feelings that you connect to are love or excitement or joy. And if you're outside, you can look at clouds, you can look at birds, you can look at something that brings you that feeling of just peace and fulfillment. If you're at work and you're at your desk, then you go to a place, maybe one of your favorite places that you've gone on vacation to, or the love of your life, or your dog, your child, someone that brings you so much joy, and you just remember that person. And you take those deep breaths in and you release, and then you open your eyes and you feel...
And here we are.
Yeah.
So simple.
Super simple. Like 10 seconds.
I should be doing this like, before every podcast.
Yes. And during.
And during.
Yes. So, it's really about reconnecting, breathing, internalizing, and connecting to something that brings you joy and fulfillment. And it takes like 10 seconds, but you do it multiple times a day. And so it kind of resets that internal peace that you need to have to be able to be productive and creative. And instead of dazing off and being like, I'm so tired of doing this, reminding yourself of why you are doing what you're doing. And, if you're not doing what you want to be doing, then while you're doing that breathing exercise, you can go to your soul's purpose, your goal, your dreams, and know that what you're doing right now is going to feed that dream. So it gives you that reason for why you're doing what you're doing.
Is that what you teach when you meet with corporate clients? I think corporations now realize too how important the mental wellness of their people is. Mm-hmm. In the past, it was providing snacks over here, then gym because we want to be healthy.
Bagel Tuesdays.
Right? Exactly, yeah. Right. And now I think the pendulum is swinging to the point where they realize that, to really get more efficiency from people and keep them happy and keep, just building this whole thing up, they need to take care of mental states as well. Mm-hmm. What is this? Is Stop and Wander is what you do with them? What else do you do when you go and do mental wellness stuff?
So I work on 3 key factors: active gratitude, wonder, stop and wonder, and connection. Mm-hmm. And I tell them that they can experience connection and wonder through the act of gratitude, through expressing gratitude. So in 2019, in June, I launched a pilot study, and one of the questions was, how do you want to receive appreciation at work? And the number one answer was gratitude expressed face-to-face. So what I do is I bring in this, we work on expressing gratitude with being very sincere and genuine. And a lot of people aren't comfortable with expressing it face-to-face. They're very comfortable emailing it, texting it, or sending it through the P2P system that they've got at work or whatever.
That doesn't translate though, right?
No, it doesn't actually. Video, though, so during this COVID time, I have found that the best thing I can get closest to face is a video of me. And you can do it on LinkedIn. You can do it on LinkedIn, you can do it on Instagram, you can do it on WhatsApp. And so that's what I've started to do is I'll literally like, hey, I just want to tell you I miss you, I love you, da da da, or thank you so much for that meeting, it went really great, and then I'll send it. It has to be under a certain amount of time or else it won't send, but you can play with it. But yeah, that's what I teach. I teach them about that act of gratitude. And the act of gratitude is all about connection. It's viscerally connecting to emotions when you're feeling that gratitude. Like if you named, I'm grateful for my daughter, let's say, then you would think about a memory of your daughter or that's something that happened today that just made you like so happy and filled with joy. There's always something. I know that a lot of times our kids can but there's always something that they've done that we just feel joyful about.
Right.
So we would think about that, a moment. And you would think, I'm grateful for my daughter. And you take a deep breath in and you connect to that moment. And so what it does is it internalizes that gratitude. It becomes more of an active state inside of your body and your mind. And then as you continue to practice that throughout the day and each day as you're moving forward, it becomes natural for you to internalize and viscerally feel what you're grateful for. And so that's what I teach. So when I teach them about active gratitude, how to express gratitude face to face, then they're feeling connected, they're feeling wonder, and they're feeling gratitude all at the same time. It's extremely a powerful force that can lift and bring them all together. There was a study done with 23,000 employees from different businesses, and they were asked about receiving appreciation at work. And those that received appreciation at least 4 times during the week loved their job regardless of what job they were doing. So they just needed
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Those are amazing.
It was 83% of them loved their job if they received it at least 4 times a week.
That's amazing, because I think like number one complaint sort of that people have with their work-life balance is that I hate what I do, I want to do something else, right? And yet, you know, people have to do what they have to do in their capacities at work. So like, how do you find that joy? Do you think it is possible to change your mindset? It sounds like it is possible, even if because sometimes you may convince yourself that you want to do something else where your job is fine. It's just your approach and mindset towards it may need adjustment.
I feel like they marry their boss and their coworkers, not their job. And so if you're in an environment that you feel valued, you feel like you're seen, you have your friends, you've got someone who says, I see you, your supervisors, and not just your supervisors, your C-suites are like coming in and being like, hey, I recognize what you're doing for our company, and you are amazing, and thank you for showing up every day. I know what you do is difficult. I used to be there, and thank you. You are valuable. If you've got that kind of environment going on, face to face, you're going to feel valued and seen, and you're going to give up maybe even a different job knowing, you know what, this is just too amazing. Like, I love where I'm at.
Right.
It's a family.
Do you think that with expressing that gratitude, do you teach people how to be genuine about it? Because there's a fine line between like, oh, let me just knock out this video for someone to make him feel better, just to kind of procedurally. Whereas you want this to be genuine. You want this to be something that, because someone's going to be watching the video, they will see your body language. They'll see if it's genuine or not. They will detect it, whether they know it or not. They'll, we all have this BS detector that will let us know. Right. So do you teach people like how to connect to something, or how to do this so it is genuine?
Yeah. So we go through a process where I ask them to think of 3 people that they want to express gratitude to, or that they haven't expressed gratitude to in a long time. And then I ask them to write down 3 specific things that that person has done that makes their life better, or that they've recognized that person has done. So it kind of gives them a template, so they've already pre-thought those things instead of just winging it.
Gotcha.
And then it does become easier. So the more you practice it, it's an abundant source. You can give as much praise and as much gratitude, but you're right. It will be felt if it's not sincere and genuine. And so, when someone's just feeding you bull and wants to get something out of you, whereas you can feel like the eye-to-eye contact, the body language, and when you say something specific, then you know that person really means it.
Right, because then they connect to like, even on a logical level, right? They'll be like, oh, yeah, that did make, that person's life better, or like I did provide that, and, thank you for recognizing that. So that on a logical level, that the body language and delivery is going to tell the rest in terms of like the emotional aspect of it, that yes, this is sincere, that,
And the main thing that I have, come to is this gratitude work, this wonder, this connection, it's all about saving lives.
How so?
Well, you never know when someone's having a really down day. A lot of times when people are suicidal, they don't show it. It's, they have this false pretense that everything's okay. And that one person expressing gratitude to that person, saying, you matter, we need you, look what you did today, could be the day where that person was going to go home and commit suicide. And instead, because of that, they're like, okay, I can make it through today.
Connection
is essential. I'm needed. I'm
part
wanted.
Of this. I'm wanted.
I'm not a burden.
I am not just this body that sits over here and nobody cares.
Yeah.
There was a story that I read many years ago. Someone literally died at their desk, and nobody realized that for like days.
Oh.
Yeah, it was terrible. And it makes you then think like, wow, maybe that person, it wasn't a suicide, they just died, but it makes you think like, how was the life of that person? Maybe they weren't connecting, or they weren't connected with others, and nobody cared about them, and so kind of illustrates well to me like how that connection is important to feel like everybody wants to feel wanted in some respect. That I'm doing this, I'm not just filling a space over here.
Yeah,
that I'm part of this whole thing.
And one thing, I mean, according to the CDC, the stats are starting to change a little. This is from 2019. Every day, approximately 129 people were dying by suicide, and 93 of them were men. Now, there's more attempts. Women attempt more, but men are the ones that are dying by suicide at a greater rate. And then here in Utah, teens, it's the number one killer of teens. In the United States, it's the number 3 killer of college-age students. And so if you see that and you look at that and think about the pandemic that's happening with COVID, but the pandemic that's happening in mental health, what's really, getting us is that need to feel that we belong, that need to feel loved, that need to feel connected. And we're disconnecting more and more because we're more on our screens. We're more socially, disconnected by socially connecting.
Right. How weird is that?
Yeah.
The world has never been as connected as it is right now. You literally can almost reach anybody on the planet instantaneously, and yet we feel more and more alone. What are your thoughts on why is that happening?
I feel like the more that we use our devices, the more uncomfortable we become face to face. Because it's so much easier to be vulnerable with a screen than with someone right next to you. But I don't know if you've noticed, but usually with my podcast interviews, the ones where I'm in person, there's so much more dynamic.
Yeah, that's why I love doing podcasts in the studio here. And thank you for the compliment about the studio. I did try to make it as kind of comfy and cozy in a sense of comfort, and it's just us talking, and that's really big for me because it's what makes the conversation more real and flowing and genuine, and it's not like it's not just like a production. It's just a conversation, exchange of ideas, exchange of perspectives and thoughts. But it is important to have that. I mean, I feel it better when I have someone in the studio, that dynamic conversation, that flow, versus like the remote ones. Even though it's still better to have a remote one with an interesting person than none at all, I prefer for it to be in person.
Yeah, well,
there's something in it.
There's an energy. You can feel people's energy.
Right.
At least I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe you can feed off of people's energy.
There's call it whatever it is, whether it's the energy, it's the chemistry, it's the immediacy of the proximity. And also even just in talking, it's like we can bounce things back and forth much faster and easier than kind of like, because there's always a delay, but when you're talking to someone remotely, even if it's a fraction of a second, then you're kind of like, you're moderating yourself in how you're communicating, because like I'm passing the baton, okay, now you say something, now you say something, versus we can kind of talk more dynamically, and that kind of opens it up to a better conversation, I think.
Yeah. And my brother, he's in a band called Noble Bodies, and they did a song where the music video is quite graphic, but at the beginning of the song, the band members are hanging out, having fun, conversing, doing all these really fun things, and then they go and they have surgery. And during the surgery, one of my brothers is the surgeon in the video, but their hearts are transplanted with a cell phone. And then they come out of this surgery, and they're all just walking side by side, but they're not really conversing. It's quite, it was pretty intense. But because what they have seen is when they were in the music scene about 10 years ago or more, people were all coming out to, the concerts and having all this, getting together, and just such a huge shift in nobody wants to come out and just do these things, like just go out and do things out in public. Like, so many of the youth were starting to just want to be at home and be on their cell phones. So what I really work on, is that connection, the gratitude and the wonder. And I know I pulled it to a little bit of a side note, but I mean, really in this time, especially with the pandemic, there's still the ability to get that get that in, even if it's 5 feet apart, or 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart, or like just really bringing that, trying to get that integrated into your life. And if you notice someone that's starting to isolate, that's when you reach out to them and you tell them a few things about them that you're just grateful for, regardless if you think they're struggling or not. That's one of the things you can do. It doesn't have to be at work. Like, this is everywhere.
Right.
So it's just literally like, oh, I haven't thanked my mom for a while. What are 3 things I really love about her? If it's not an innate kind of thing that you do. I used to be bashful about telling, like complimenting people and expressing gratitude. It used to be really difficult for me. And now
what changed?
I love it. The knowledge that it changes lives and practicing. Like, once I started, I got better and better at it.
Right.
And I'm sincere, and people feel it.
Right, because I think it's not that you have to make things up. You just have to find the things that you need to connect to that really were there, real. Like someone in your life did something at some point that made your life better or helped you in some way. So just try to recall those things and connect with that. And then you're just going to be genuine, because that's what it's going to make you feel like.
Yeah. And I've interviewed over 40 professionals now. I've done some gratitude, I call it the Gratitude Stories series. And I still remember one of the professionals I interviewed, I go to a question saying, has there ever been a time when someone expressed gratitude to you face to face that made a difference? He went back 4 years saying, this person expressed gratitude to me, and whenever I feel like I don't want to keep working or doing what I do, I go back to that moment and remember that it matters. That's how powerful this can be. Like, it's life-changing for some people because they don't get enough of it.
That is just so amazing. I hope that this is going to persist, and in terms of, like, I feel like we're in a very interesting time, not because only of COVID, which has impacted and kind of socially turned everything upside down and really, but at the same time, it also opened up these new gateways, these new things that we will start thinking about more because of COVID, because of the social distancing. It makes us highlight, the deficiencies that we had before, and hopefully that's going to have a positive impact on people.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're going with this mental health and mental wellness in the future? What are some of the things in your line of work, with everything that you do, speaking with people and corporations, transforming people's lives through your own story? What do you think we're going to be in like 5 years in terms of, are you positive about, are you optimistic about where we're heading? Or do you think once the corona thing, passes and we're going to settle back on our laurels again and be the way we used to be? Or do you think things will change for the better?
My hope is that everyone will recognize that everyone is in need of mental hygiene. It's like brushing your teeth every day. Brush your brain, people.
Yeah.
Just take care of it.
I like brush your brain.
Yeah, and I really feel like this is the time. I feel like my life is in continual metamorphosis. Like, I become a bigger, better butterfly, and sometimes my wing might get clipped, and then it's like, grow another wing. And that's what we have, is the opportunity right now to recognize that we need to take care of every part of our body, and our brain is our most essential asset. It's what keeps everything else alive. And how can we connect if we're not taking care of us? And we have all the answers within us. We have that power, but sometimes we do need to reach out to learn more skills and then implement them. So some people might be drawn to what I teach and be like, that's what I need. And then they might be like, other people might be like, you know what, that's really not my cup of tea. But they will be drawn to what they need to be able to heal and to be able to take care of themselves. What I do hope is that all people recognize that no matter in what state they are in, whether they're in a high state of need or they're like, life is absolutely amazing, that practicing mindfulness, meditation, yoga, exercise, gratitude, wonder, and connection will only create an inoculation and a preventative measures so that when a stress comes into their life, they're going to be able to handle it at a more calm and peaceful state. Instead of seeing the tiger, they're going to see the little stuffed meow and be like, okay, I got this. I can do it.
So it's your upfront investment in doing all those things that you listed that will basically help you out later on when it, the going's going to get tough.
Absolutely. And the skills you learn now, you're going to be able to teach. And if, let's say, you haven't even had kids yet, I believe in generational things that carry on. So you learn to be more calm, more able to handle the stresses in life. Your kids will be able to do so as well. People around you will feel it. So it's just a state of changing a community through one person at a time. And it can happen.
Right. I mean, I definitely see that, when you learn how to better control those things or work with those things, those emotions that are happening to, life always will try you. And so I see how you can transfer that to your kids, because they see how you react, and even, sort of like by osmosis almost, they were like, oh, when this happens, this is how my parents reacted, and therefore that's the pattern. So you're modeling really so now you need to change that in yourself so that it propagates on.
Mm-hmm. And let's say you're not in the C-suite and you want to make change. You can make change. You be the change maker. You start being the one that's expressing gratitude to everyone. It catches on. People start feeling it. They start recognizing, oh, I didn't, express gratitude to that person, and it feels good. And you express gratitude to the people that are up in the exec suite. Start being that change maker. It doesn't matter what position you are in life. Like, literally, you are the change maker. You start with you,
right?
And it catches on like wildfire.
Was it Gandhi who said, "Be the change you want to see in the world"?
I don't know, but I will believe it if you say so. I'm gonna.
Wow, yeah. I read it somewhere on the internet, so it must be true.
Must be true, right?
Or just like Abraham Lincoln said, "Don't believe everything that you see on the internet."
Yeah, because the internet existed back then.
Exactly.
I'm one of those gullible people. I would have been like, yes, but I'm a little more quick now that I practice my, my deep breathing.
It is one of the things that you talk about is the mindset, the victory mindset. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about that. What are some of the components that you kind of roll into that, program or modality that you develop, that you talk about?
Well, one thing is most people have gone through a trauma or have a hard time sometimes, and many times we go into the victim state. Woe is me, or life is so hard. And so by teaching that you can, every day is a victory. Like, that's one of my mottos, every day is a victory. Getting out of bed, recognizing those things that you do to get you moving forward, that every step, not, just staying in that victim state is a move forward, is a victory. I try and implement that with that gratitude work, because the gratitude really does bring the victory mindset where everyone can be winner. Like, we're all, the abundance mindset, the ability to, I'm all about karma and abundance, and we don't need to be in competition. We can all just work together. There's plenty out in the world for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that victory mindset is part of that. Just teaching them, like, look, you had a hard time. Yes. Okay, so
you didn't die.
You didn't die. And I don't want to be mean, because people, like, I've been in that state where it just hurts and it's hard and it's like, it's awful and you can't get out of it sometimes.
Right.
But looking and seeing that I get you, I understand, having someone that can be empathetic and be
I've been there.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You're still here. Just knowing I'm still here is a victory mindset. Instead of, I'm such a loser, I'm such a, like, starting those positive thoughts and affirmations. I am safe. I am love. I am light. I'm still here. I'm, if you have to just say that one at the beginning, just like, I am truth. And then working on, I work on I do some private personal meditations for people. We'll go through I like to call it a soul statement instead of a mission statement. But I'll work through that, and then I turn it into a meditation for them. It's really fun.
There's so many different kinds of meditation. How do you meditate? How did you find that specific type of meditation that you do? And because there are just so many different kinds, and people sometimes get stuck like, oh, well, I do transcendental meditation. Oh, I got to do this, meditation. How did you sort of develop where you are at with the way you meditate?
I call mine intuitive meditation. It's very personal. A lot of times for me, I believe in Christ, so it's Christ-centered. I'll invite him to be with me while I meditate. But I will focus, sometimes I'll go on to my inner soul, my own inner self, or I go into wonder. So I use it's just literally like, what do I need today? Once in a while I'll use an affirmation, but most of the time I will, I'll take deep breaths and I will just run through my chakras, try to clean them out, connect to earth, like, I have a film I did with Vid Army I'm so excited about when it comes out, but I can imagine like a tree coming out of my head. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's just a way for me to get into a wonder state.
Right.
And so if you're a gardener, meditative state is gardening. It can be. It's where you're in flow, when you're able to relax and be in this relaxation state when input can come and output can come as well. And so, for some people, they think they have to be sitting for 40 minutes and meditating. We did a 10-second meditation. Stop
Right.
and wonder.
Felt great.
Yeah, it feels great. And so I like to really impress on people that meditation doesn't mean hours of meditation.
Do you think it's more often shorter or fewer, but lengthier, or both in terms of meditation?
I would go with what you feel like. I try to get in a meditation each day where it can go 10 minutes. Sometimes I end up, I have kids, so it makes it more difficult. But I could go now for 40 minutes to an hour. But I mean, I was a girl that could only exercise. I couldn't even do yoga. Like, I was like, that's boring. And I have gone into where I can calm my mind, and it's beautiful. And meditation is known for helping heal the brain, helping you get into a state where you're able to just be calm and correct, the places in your brain that maybe need to be healed, or it just creates that wavelength that is necessary to create a stability.
Rejuvenate, recover.
Yeah.
The constant barrage of social media, as much as it's a double-edged sword, right? Mm-hmm. It's a great communication tool. It's great to reach out, to be able to do everything that it offers. But at the same time, it will pull you in. It will suck you in. It will take your time. It will show you the images that may basically take you in a different path in terms of, like, oh, look at this person, so successful, look at this. And you constantly see those things. And a lot of people get depressed because of that, because it's just that kind of constant exposure of whether it's true or not is impacting you. Then you question your self-worth and whether you're successful or not. How do you combat? First of all, do you suffer from that as well as pretty much everybody, I think, does in one way or the other, when they're looking at somebody else's life in the stream of constant images and stories, where it makes you feel like, oh, maybe my life is not that exciting? What do you do to sort of combat that or to cleanse out of that? Well,
I definitely do media cleanses.
Like turn everything off?
I've had to do it. I've gotten into places where you don't realize you're using your phone so much. And I would always be like, it's for business, because I have, KP Speaks on Instagram, and I have Buona Forchetta, and I've got LinkedIn, and then I stopped doing Facebook as much, but now with Stick to Life that I'm involved with, they have a Facebook group, and I'm in charge of the media, and so I'm like, not the media, but the marketing, and so I'm like, okay. I found that if you really want to be, conscious of the effect that social media or electronics, I like to call them electronics, I'm still like old school here, the electronics.
I resonate with that. Yeah.
Yeah, electronics have on your life. Yeah. Then I'm really working hard on, I take off apps on my phone to like practice self control and reboot them when I need them. Like Instagram, I went off. I just told, you're like, people will not follow me, or they need me.
Right.
And I was like, no, I need myself and I need my sanity. And right now is an important time for me to focus on myself and my family. I'm going to be gone for 3 months. Bye. And then it helps you control yourself, but then you can get sucked in really quickly.
Yeah.
And so that's what's hard, is when you're supposed to be this social media person, you are your name, then you're supposed to be promoting yourself,
Right.
taking pictures. Yeah, it can get pretty intense, and it really is like it's a black hole. You can get sucked in, and your kids might be pulling. Like, if we walk around, I would love to, like, that's gonna be one of my challenges. Like, you know, like, you guys, I want you to walk around, and I want you to count the amount of people that are like this with their phones,
Right.
and are next to a person. Okay, just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've become so used to that, like, so used to people just on their phones, cell phones. Even when we're with people, we accept that instead of having that boundary. Like, all right,
Right, yeah.
put these
I'm
away. We're
talking
going
to
to
you right now.
connect.
Yeah, we're
Like,
talking right now. Put
turn
it
off
away.
all of your notices,
Yeah.
notifications, unless you have a babysitter.
Yeah.
Then you're allowed to check like every 30 minutes because your kids aren't going to die in 30 minutes. You know, like something like that. Like really making that your own boundary at least.
Yeah.
Like creating that space where I matter. This is important. This is sacred time. And it also tells that person they're important to you. And so the social media thing has been difficult. Like
Yeah.
it does create, especially teens. I mean, it's rampant. Like the depression, the anxiety that it creates, the inability to socialize and connect. And then we get into the college age, and now we're getting into us. Like, I see people on dates all the time, and they're on their phones. You know, older couples that are married are both, at least one of them's on their phone a lot of the time
Yeah.
because they're just not connecting anymore.
Yeah. What's the solution?
The solution is get rid of the damn phones. Go to flip phones. I don't know.
That's it. 2 cups and a string.
Yeah, like the new, what is the cute phones? The fab phones, what are they? The new cell phones for teens, so they don't have anything on them.
Oh, I don't know.
I
not
know
there yet.
Gab, Gab's gonna love me. I just put a plug in for Gab.
Okay.
GABB.
It's such a double-edged sword because it's so expected that we constantly are online, especially with those who are doing things to establish brands and basically make a living off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's the enticing part of online, right? It's like, oh, you can work from home or anywhere or travel, all these different things that we imagine is what we want. But then you get pulled in by that, you know, that siren's voice that just, you know, takes you in, you know, and it's difficult then because it just hijacks your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you live in that mode, then your life was literally going to pass you by because you don't have the moments that you really will cherish because you're living through expectations of images that you see on your phone.
Yeah.
A constant feed of who's doing what and where, and then you're just projecting, how come I'm not doing that?
Well, gratitude definitely plays a big part in that. So when you see all of those things, a way to combat that is what was my favorite part of my day today, and unfollowing those people that create that type of feeling inside of you for sure, and creating those moments for you in the space that you can. I know you can't just suddenly go to Bali. Like, that's on my vision board. It's going to happen. I'm going to get there, and then I'm going to post about it. Make everyone jealous and mad
From
at
Bali.
me.
Live from Bali.
But, you know, I mean, yeah, like, unfollowing the people that make you feel blah, and it's not a personal thing. Just be like, look,
Right.
you know, I
don't
just
want
can't.
that part of my
I'm
journey.
just not part of my journey. And then also, you know, controlling that time that you have. And instead of right when I wake up, my phone is on. When I go to bed, I'm looking at my phone before I go to bed. Control those moments. Be like, I've got 2 hours of social time. And
Right.
you'd be surprised, you know, when you have that app that shows you how much time you
Yeah.
pick up your phone, how many times.
Yeah.
Like, Lindsay Ivy posted on LinkedIn about that. She's a LinkedIn influencer, and she was like, I'm surprised about how much time, you know, how many times it's like more than 100 times people are picking up their phones during the day.
Yeah.
And so if you just, you know, limit the times that you know, if you have to, like, there's people that admit to being addicted to their phones, like Rachel Hollis or Jordan Page, who's here from Utah, and they're these influencers. They're literally like, I give my phone to my kid, tell him to hide it,
Yeah.
and then they can give it back to me at 5 p.m. or whatever, so that I can be present.
Yeah.
And being present, I mean, the cell phones absolutely take you away from being present.
Oh, yeah.
You are not present. You are not inside your body. You are not being you. You are gone and checking out.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing that, then you're not learning how to, you know, connect to yourself. If you can't even connect to yourself, you're not going to be able to connect to other people.
Right. You can't connect to yourself through someone else. You know, you got to start here, not out there.
Yeah.
And I literally banned my phone from our bedroom. At night, it just has to go to a different room. And because it is, I realize and I recognize that it is pure insanity that you wake up and your first instinct is grab that phone and check what's happening. What is, downloading your daily, dose of everybody else's life.
And who wants to be first seen?
Yeah.
Not your cell phone, your wife.
Yeah.
Like, she wants to know she's the most important, or you would want to know. Like, if your wife every single morning goes straight to cell phone instead of like, hey babe, how are you? I'm so happy to see you this morning.
Yeah.
Like that little tiny connection, you're number one to me. That's amazing. That's so important. Or your kids. Instead, you're on your cell phone in your bed, your kids come to give you a hug or whatever. Or even your dog. Like, anything that you connect with them instead of this virtual, what we think is life, but it's not intrinsic. It's not visceral. It's a false sense of visceral.
Yeah. It's shallow.
And it's filtered.
And a lot of it is, filtered. I always, when I talk to some of my guests over here, when we get onto this topic of social media and how it's impacting our mental health and everything, I also ask about how twisted everything is, because it's driven by profit motive. So the videos and everything that's happening on YouTube and all over social media, the company's vested interest is in selling as much advertising as they possibly can. So they will promote things that will get the most clicks, and then that's what's hijacking people's attention. That's what's hijacking. That's what's writing the narrative of what people see, because that's what gets the most exposure. And it's like this self-feeding loop that's just kind of rolling, and we're stuck in it. And that's a sad part of that kind of mechanism. That other things that are more wholesome or better to spread out there don't get as much attention because of this kind of profit motive stealing the attention.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the sad part. So we need to find a way of disconnecting from that. Use the tool when it's needed, but be able to separate from it when it's and spend that me time.
Yeah, I think finding that happy balance for everyone is essential. And like I said, I'm mostly about connection with real people. And the best way to do that, you can use your phone to connect, but that's where you're like, let's connect at the park. Let's connect, over coffee. Let's connect over, let's do this, let's get out and get real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take us out with some calls to action, or like parting thoughts in terms of like the message that you want to leave the audience with, some golden nuggets that I'm sure you have, that you want to kind of send out there. A starting point maybe for some people to kind of, whoever's listening to this, like, you know what, I'm going to start there. What would be some of the, messages that you would want to send out?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank you for letting me be here with you today, and I love that you're helping me have a voice and to be able to share my story. So for all of you that are watching, number one, you're going to go out and look at people on their cell phones and see how many people are next to each other with cell phones to kind of create that awareness. If you're not aware of something, you can't make a change. But what I would love for you to do is to think about, kind of what I challenge people, my clients, to think about 3 people that you would like to express gratitude to. And you're going to write down 3 things that are specific to that person that you appreciate or that they've done for you. And then the big challenge is, I would love for you to either virtually with a video send them a message, or face-to-face, 6 feet apart, go and thank them. And if you want, the actually extremely most powerful way, at least what we've been taught by a positive psychologist, is writing them a gratitude letter and reading it to them face to face. It can boost your mood, and it will boost their moods. When gratitude is expressed, you're both going to have an endorphin kick. And it's a moment where both of you will be feeling this connection, and both of you will have this moment that you will you will remember. So that would be one of the challenges. The others, if you're struggling with negative thought loops or having a lot of anxiety or feeling like you just, life is just too hard. Number one, hold on. It will pass. I promise you. Number two, reach out to someone that you trust and love and talk to them. And then number three, I would totally invite you to try the stop and wonder. And that is, you're going to find yourself in a negative thought, stop, take some deep breaths, look out at the sky, call a friend, look at somebody that you love, think of a memory of a time where you have felt peace and joy, or just a snapshot like, I've been to Italy, so I'll go to Italy in my mind really quickly. And then you're going to just take those 3 deep breaths, release, and if you find you're still in a negative state, do it for a little bit longer until you've come to a centered, peaceful state. And get outside if you can. One of the things that I learned about rumination is that you can break the rumination cycle or the negative thought cycle and retrain your brain by getting outside and literally just like, you've got to turn off your electronics, and you're going to lay maybe on the grass or connect to earth, and just do some cloud watching or looking up in the trees, looking at the eccentricities and intricacies of nature, and go into a true state of wonder. And that's it. You matter. You are amazing. You are absolutely essential to our world being beautiful and whole. So hold on.
Thank you so much. That was just so wonderful. And where can people find you other than kp-speaks.com if people want to connect with you and learn more about you? How can people connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. If you can spell Petrucci, but it's on your screen, so that works.
We have that over here.
Okay.
So, yep.
Yeah, and then I'm on Instagram at kpspeaks_. And then I'm also on Facebook, but not as active. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put all of those in the show notes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure and an honor to have you here. I'm always amazed by the stories that my guests bring in, the impact that everybody has, and I think that's what's so important to remember, and not undervalue yourself and what you're doing in this world. And you beautifully expressed that in these parting thoughts, because when we remember that, then I believe that it's a stepping stone to reconnecting. Mm-hmm. So thank you again for being on the show. Really appreciate it. For the audience, if you made it all the way up over here, thank you for being here. Check out more of our stuff on apodcast.com and engage. If this was something that was helpful to you or a piece that really spoke to you, share in comments and share with others. What Kristin shared over here today has immediate applicability. And if it's not for you, share it with someone else who may be at that point in their life where they need that one thing that she mentioned, whether it's gratitude, reaching out. So thank you for listening. And until next time, I'm Adrian Sinclair, and this is The Adrian Sinclair Show. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening to a podcast with interesting people. Please subscribe and leave a review or comment.
And support us by sharing our episodes on social media. We really appreciate it. And for more information, visit us at apodcast.com. Thanks.